When people talk, listen, man, I'm going to raise that red flag.
This narrative, especially after 1 year.
1 year.
One bad year. It's just one big splash move. And because I don't think people understand how much cap space we can create.
Alex, I want to ask you, because you're a very humble person.
And I'm never going to be right about anything.
Yeah.
I was right.
Well, hello, everybody. What's going on? I'm taking a break from work again, like I've just been doing these past few nights. And I noticed something about my last video that was wrong with it. And it's basically I didn't give a counterpoint. I gave what good organizations do, but I didn't give what bad organizations do. So I decided that I'd go through and just to compare to see if bad organizations do something differently than good organizations. I mean, it could be just as easy as good organizations just hit more, like they just scout better. I mean, that really could be it. So I wanted to be as accurate as possible, so I just didn't look like some scrub, I guess. I don't know. So I picked 4 organizations that I've consistently kind of put in the Panthers realm of terrible organizations, and I would put Panthers in this, but we're saying what Panthers should be doing. So I just took them out and I added the Browns in. So my 4 worst organizations, I guess, are outside of the Panthers, because the Panthers would be in here, are the Jets, the Jags, the Raiders, and the Browns. If nothing else, the Browns just put themselves in it because of the Deshaun Watson fiasco. Like, blows my mind. But for the most part, you can kind of see why. The Jaguars are the only team that have a worse record with their current owner than the Panthers, which is bad because we haven't won. We haven't had a winning season with Tepper. So I mean, I don't need to go through why all these organizations are bad, but you get it. So I did the exact same thing. I went through the last 6 years of drafting. I labeled them the exact same way, the top 4 rounds, and what they picked. And it's actually pretty fascinating. So with defensive back, they had 24 total taken, and 10 of them were in the first 2 rounds. With offensive and defensive interior line, they had 12 taken in the first 2 rounds and 36 overall. With defensive end or edge, they had 11 total in the first 4 rounds and 5 overall. So why that's interesting is with the good organizations, and I left receiver out on purpose. With good organizations, defensive backs were 9 in the first 2 rounds and 24 overall. Bad organizations, it's 10 in the first 2 rounds and 24 overall. You can only get, there's only one number you could get that's closer. It is insane to me how close. And you want to know how close it is? The Jags picked a defensive back at pick 65, which is the first pick of the 3rd round. 1 round earlier, it would have been the exact same. 10 defensive backs taken in the first 2 rounds, 24 overall. With the offensive line and defensive tackles, basically, the bad organizations had 12 in the first 2 rounds and 36 overall. Good organizations had 13 in the first 2 rounds and 33 overall. So 12 and 36, 13 and 33. Again, almost spot on. 12 and 36, 13 and 33. it's so hard to make it up. And then if you just go to the defensive end or edge rusher, the bad organizations had 5 in the first 2 rounds and 11 overall. Good organizations 3 and 8 overall. So that was just a matter of, usually bad organizations have more picks because they end up being able to be in the early of the rounds so they can trade back so they get more picks. The better organizations don't have that luxury as much because they're in the later rounds. So they, just by simple logic, they can't trade back because they're already in the back. So those are so wild, so wildly close. So then I go to receiver, and remember yesterday, there were 19 total in the first 4 rounds and 13 in the first 2. With bad organizations, it's 13 total in the first 4 rounds, and only 6 were in the first 2 rounds. With four teams over 6 years, only 6 wide receivers were drafted in the first 2 rounds. So basically the first 2 rounds, they had as much as edges or outside linebackers. The comparisons in the first 2 rounds to good organizations were 3 edges and 13 wide receivers. So really, the actual only difference in the drafting is wide receiver, which is bonkers. That the difference in drafting, as far as how they approach the draft, is that good organizations draft and pay a premium for wide receivers, and bad organizations don't. Not only that, I looked even further, right? I call them Band-Aid organizations because they put a Band-Aid on. They don't get people from free agency and sign them to long-term deals. They're like, we're good for right now. And then when the time comes to pay them, they're like, we'll see you later. So you're talking about just recently, you had the Jets. They had Elijah Moore that they spent money on. They had Robbie Anderson that they traded to us. Because they've gotten their receivers from free agency so long, they rarely draft them. So those are the only 2 that I can even think of recently. But I can think of a lot that they've gotten from free agency. I mean, Devontae Adams, just recently is Devontae Adams, Lazard, and Cobb. They got Corey Davis from Tennessee. The years that they had Fitzpatrick, they had Brandon Marshall, they had Eric Decker from the Broncos. They've consistently got theirs from free agency. And it ain't worked. It hasn't worked. And you see them changing. They went and got Elijah Moore. I think in the second round, they got Garrett Wilson in the first. But they traded Elijah Moore the second year. So you can see them understanding that they're supposed to do it. But then they get rid of them. They don't develop them. The Jags, Allen Robinson, DJ Chark, Laviska Shenault, drafted those guys. All right, see ya. Allen Robinson was a Pro Bowler for the Jags. DJ Chark was a Pro Bowler for the Jags. No, we're good. We're going to go and put Band-Aids on. Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, Gabe Davis, Zay Jones, Marvin Jones. We're going to be the Band-Aid organization. If you're going to throw tight end, Evan Ingram. We don't want to draft and develop our own guys. We're going to be the Band-Aid organization. Go to the Raiders. They drafted Amari Cooper. See ya. Brian Edwards. See ya. But you know what? They brought in Antonio Brown. And he didn't even play for him. Devontae Adams. Jacoby Myers. Zay Jones. Nelson Aguilar. Nelson Aguilar went to the Raiders after the Eagles, where he didn't do very well, which is one of the rare times that the Eagles draft and then move on. The Browns. They brought in Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore. They brought in OBJ. They brought in Jarvis Landry. Drafting, I can't find a lot. Donovan Peoples-Jones, which they got off of. Like, hopefully that Tillman and David Bell, I guess, do well for them, but not yet. So they're literally doing the opposite of paying premium and keeping those guys. We saw the 49ers. They didn't have Ayuk this year. And they still ran a competent offense. They decided that it's so important to have a good wide receiver that even though we just drafted Pearsall, even though we have Debo, we have McCaffrey, we have George Kittle, wide receivers are so important, we're going to pay them. And the only way we would let them go is if you gave us a receiver back. That's what good organizations do. Hey, Washington, you have this guy that you drafted in the first round 2 years ago, in Jahan Dotson. This is a premium pick that you put on this guy, and you just like said, whatever. Why not take him? I'm going to take that guy because you paid a premium for him. The whole league thought he was going to be a first rounder. And who knows? I mean, he hasn't really done anything this year, but who knows? It's worth it. It's worth paying a third rounder to get that guy. It's not a rookie deal. It's not taking up a lot of cap space. Let me draft Devonta Smith. And let me re-sign him twice. Or extend him twice. Let me trade a premium first round pick for A.J. Brown and extend him twice. Because that's what good organizations do. Yeah, I got Nelson Aguilar. I whiffed. Whoops. But you know what? I kept doing it because I know that you have to for good wide receivers. The Ravens, Hollywood Brown. Hey, man, you're not really working out for us. And so I would see that as a maybe failure. But I'll still get Rashad Bateman. Everybody thought Rashad Bateman was a bust. He had a great season. Then I sent Zay Flowers. Like, gonna get these guys, draft them, spend my premium money on them, because that's what you have to do for good organizations. Because good organizations do 13 and then 19 total as far as first four rounds. Bad organizations do 6 and 13. Chiefs. They wanted to keep Tyreek Hill so badly, even though they didn't pay a premium pick for him, but they understand the value of wide receiver. They wanted to keep him badly. And the only way they let him go was for a trade haul. I think it was 5 picks, including a first, in the same draft. And then what do? Mecole Hardman, Sky Moore, Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy. You gotta keep trying because they're premium position. It is the premium position. That's why good organizations spend the exact same amount of top 2 round picks as they do for offensive line and interior defensive line combined. Because what do? They go out and get these guys in free agency. You get your Linval Joseph. You get your Ndamukong Suh. You get your Hargrave for if you're the 49ers. You can get these guys. Running back, I'm not going to pay for, I'm not going to draft a running back. I can just get Derrick Henry. Why would I do that? Let's get that guy. I can just get Saquon Barkley. Like, wow, like, but you know what these bad organizations did? 36th pick, 25th pick, 24th pick, 52nd pick. Running back. Why? You got Saquon Barkley. He just had the best year, one of the best years of all time. I didn't draft him. I didn't need to. But you know what? What would it, if I didn't have a receiver, what would I do? Like, you go look at the free agents, like, right now. That you can, like, Aaron Jones is, like, little, like, top of the list. You just get him. Their contract's over. Texas got Joe Mixon, changed their organization. Josh Jacobs literally led the league in scrimmage yardage 2 years ago. Free agent. Packers like, well, we'll take him. They won a playoff game. They're still in the playoffs. I mean, look at the teams that are still in the playoffs. Kareem Hunt, basically splitting time with Pacheco, just left for dead. Saquon Barkley, free agent. Derrick Henry, free agent. David Montgomery was a free agent when they got him over there. Joe Mixon was a free agent. Josh Jacobs. Is it every single team? Did I just name everybody? I guess they drafted Brian Robinson, but they got Austin Eckler, free agent. Why would you ever draft him in the first 2 rounds? It's so silly. That's why bad organizations are bad. Yeah, like, I like Christian McCaffrey, but that was a sign of being a bad organization. Yeah, Leonard Fournette, Jags drafted him in the first 10 picks. Whoops. Saquon just had a amazing career, or amazing year on a different team, but drafting him second of the Giants did nothing for the Giants. It was still trash. When you could have spent those premium picks on receiver. It's in the numbers. It's so obvious. And I hate that I was wrong about it. I didn't want to draft a receiver. I hate drafting receivers because the miss rate's so high on receivers. So I'd rather get, like, when people say you could never win your draft in the first round, but you can always lose it. That's kind of how I felt. So if we draft receivers, they can always miss. But you know what? The Commanders missed on Dotson, and they're doing just fine. Eagles missed on Aguilar. They're doing just fine. I'm not saying this is what I would do. I'm saying look at the numbers for good organizations versus bad organizations, and let's just try to do what the good organizations do. Because you know what? J.C. Horn didn't change our franchise. Derek Brown didn't change our franchise. Chris McCaffrey didn't change our franchise. You know what? Steve Smith changed our franchise. Like, as soon as DJ Moore left, woof, yikes. And that's another thing that we do. Even though I like Kelvin Benjamin, whatever, I didn't like him, but moved off him fast. Curtis Samuel, see ya. 1,000-yard receiver, see ya. DJ Moore, we picked you to be in the trade, not Brian Burns. Even though good organizations say that the premium is receiver. All right. Whatever. So I'm not trying to preach football to people and tell them that I know better. I'm saying that the numbers speak for themselves, and good organizations say premium picks should be spent on wide receiver. So, in facto, we should be picking a wide receiver in the first round, even though we've gone whiff at wide receiver. It's a premium position, and we should be spending a premium pick on that position. Because also, in the first 4 rounds, offensive line, 2/3 of them are drafted in 3 and 4. Outside of 1 and 2. Edge, good organizations. More than half of them are in 3 and 4. Only 3 of them were in 1 and 2. So we just gotta stop assuming that we know things as fans, because the ones that know things are the the great organizations. It's Howie Roseman and John Lynch. Like, they're doing pretty well doing the way that they're doing. So we should just do what they're doing. Just deal with that. Pretty okay. All right, that's it for me. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.